I had your Try Swim Coach DVDs, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. I watched them again just a week ago, and so sorry I forgot to give you a plug.
Oh, that's all right. I just recorded that, so I'll stick it in there somehow.
Oh, okay, fair
Uh,
enough.
This is the Try Swim Coach podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TrySwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
Welcome back to Try Swim Coach. This is Kevin. Thanks for joining us today. In just a minute, I have an interview with age group triathlete Steve Mallard, and he's also a Try Swim Coach member. And I really wanted to get his story out there. He never swam at all until age 50, age 51, and now he's 55 and doing really well in triathlon and swimming. So we're going to talk about how he got started and what his journey has been like and all the tips and tricks that he has. So stay tuned for that in just a minute. I do have a review on the podcast that I wanted to read, and this is from Ton of Rob, and this is from about a month ago. And this is from iTunes. So great info, 5 stars, being a runner, moving to triathlon. These podcasts are great sources of information. Kevin covers great technical instruction on swim stroke and broader triathlon nuances like transition tips and mistakes to avoid. Highly recommend to anyone starting out in tri and for those looking to get that extra edge, especially in the swim. Thanks guys to giving me some tips, some great tips as a first timer and for helping me, quote, laugh at the water. Well, Rob, thanks so much for your review, and I want to give credit also to Chris Haig, who is often my co-host on the show, so to adding in the perspective of a competitive triathlete. A couple things before I get to this interview. One is we mentioned on the interview wetsuits, and Try Swim Coach is a partner of Xterra wetsuits. We love Xterra, and if you are looking for a wetsuit and want to get a good discount on them, you can go to xterrawetsuits.com and use our discount code, and that's CO-TRISC, and it's CO-TRISC. That's the discount code. You can get up to 60% off on wetsuits, so check that out. That's xterrawetsuits.com. And if you are in the Southern California area or you are planning to visit in November, we also have a Customer Appreciation Day coming up, and that's going to be November 13th, and that's a Sunday, and we're going to have a little swim clinic, some video taping going on, and we're going to have some giveaways, and we're also going to have a little talk on nutrition. So if you've got some time to spare, you're in California and you can make it out, we'd love to see you, and that's November 13th. And that's a free swim clinic if you are a Try Swim Coach customer. So we're taking everyone that has joined Try Swim Coach and offering this free clinic. If you haven't joined us yet, just go to tryswimcoach.com and you can click on the button there and you can join us, and then you're also in our Facebook group and you get all the other benefits of being a member. So without further ado, here's my interview with Steve Mallard. Take care, have a great week of training, and we'll talk to you soon. Cool. All right. Well, today I am excited to have age group triathlete and Try Swim Coach member Steve Mallard on the show. And Steve is 55 and played competitive soccer for 30 years before switching to triathlon at age 50. He made it to age 51 without being able to swim a single stroke and finished dead last out of the water in his first triathlon. But just 4 years later, he's middle of the pack and finished a 1,500-meter swim in just 30 minutes. Steve, welcome to Try Swim Coach.
Kevin, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is so impressive because I remember just a few years ago, because I took some time off of swimming and I was not swimming for a couple of years and just way out of shape. And I just jumped in and did a 1 mile swim with having been in the water for about a week before. And I remember doing a 31-minute swim, and I've got like a lifetime of swimming background. So for you to get to 30 minutes in a few years, that's really impressive.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I guess to add some more kind of color to the story, yeah, I guess I'm what they call an adult onset swimmer. So as you say, I reached the age of 50, 51. I couldn't even do a single length of the pool there. And it kind of goes back to my childhood. When I was age 6, I fell in the local canal, and neither my mother nor father were swimmers themselves. and I very nearly drowned. Somehow I kind of scrambled my way to the shore, but it left me with a mortal fear of water, and that persisted for a very, very long time. So consequently, all the way through my school years, I bunked off from swim lessons and stuff like that, and it never really bothered me until I got to middle age, when it kind of really it annoyed me. I hate not being able to do things, so I felt it was time to address this lack of swimming in my life, and that's really my motivation for taking up triathlon.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know about that background story. That's interesting. So you kind of overcame this pretty big fear that you had.
Yeah, and I just did it by, no pun intended, by immersion, right? Just jumping in the water and just
Yeah.
fighting through and overcoming fears. And yeah, got there in the end, but it was a little bit of a psychological battle for sure.
Did you have a coach or someone that was kind of guiding you through that, or did you just do it just totally sheer will on your own?
Well, it was a couple of things, I guess. I did take a couple of lessons. I did the total immersion swim class back in the day, got something out of that, and then just started hitting the local pool. But moving from the pool to the open water swim is another big psychological battle, as I'm sure you're aware. I did that in conjunction with my local tri club. So a quick shout out to the Silicon Valley Triathlon Club up here in the Bay Area, who do regular kind of newbie swims,
Yeah.
and that was my introduction. So I cannot tell you just the nerves I encountered before my first open water swim, which I think lasted all of maybe 3 minutes before I had to jump out and run screaming for the parking lot. But I persisted and got better and better and more comfortable every time I went in.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and you said you've done some master swimming as well, and but also taken some lessons.
Yeah, a little bit. So I guess if there's one theme to what I hope your listeners can get out of this interview, it's that I've kind of improved in 4 years, but I believe that if I'd known then what I know now, I could have done it a lot quicker than 4 years. So I hope to share some of my experiences that maybe can benefit your listeners here. Master Swim certainly has its place. It's a great workout, and certainly working out in kind of camaraderie with your fellow swimmers is a great way to raise your game. My experience of Master Swim, though, is that you won't get a lot of one-on-one attention, and you won't get a lot of instruction in technique. So Master Swim is great as a workout, but in terms of actually learning technique, I think you've got to have some one-on-one coaching. So I've done that a number of times over the years, and I don't need to tell you this, but one of the single biggest difference to my mind between swimming versus cycling and running is that there is so much more technique involved in swimming. Yes, you've got to be fit, of course, but good technique is the difference between a good swim and a bad swim. You've got to move efficiently through the water, and that doesn't come naturally, especially when you're 51 years of age. You've got to learn that from someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And so you took some lessons then, you said.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah, and they were very helpful. Yeah.
Great. And that was that with a master's coach or a triathlon coach?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's up here in the Bay Area. I'm lucky to have a gentleman called Pete Kane here in the Bay Area, who's an ex-age group world champion multiple times over. Did a few lessons with him and with other local pros in the neighborhood, and that in conjunction with a lot of YouTube video watching helped me develop my technique over the years.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar. Didn't he have a slogan that was like "No cane, no gain"?
That's exactly no pain, no
Yeah,
gain.
yeah,
That's
I remember that guy. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so and then you have also done some video work. That was the other thing that you said made a big difference.
Indeed, if I would recommend that if you ever get the chance to attend a swim video clinic, do it. Because the most important thing and this is really for your own benefit as well as your coach's benefit, is you get to see what goes on beneath the water. So any coach can stand by the side of the pool and see what you're doing above the water. You can only really see what's going on below the water with the aid of some video. And for example, you tend not to see things like the famous sinking legs problem unless you're under the water. You can't really analyze the efficiency of your catch unless you can see what's going on below the water. And I've done a couple of swim video clinics now, and I get something out of each one. And particularly about the catch. So we may get onto specifics of different technique, but For me, the one of the most important things you can do in terms of improving your swim time is to develop the famous high elbow catch, or the early vertical forearm. And you can only really see that with an underwater video, in my experience.
Yeah, that's true. The overwater can give you a little bit of it can give you a little bit of awareness about certain things, but the underwater is definitely the gold. I mean, that's where we do a lot of that with our Try Swim Success program, and do a lot of video reviews, and that's, you're right, that's it. Especially that high elbow catch, it's a great thing to look at and see what you're doing that you're maybe not doing right, and then how to correct it. So yeah, and then you also you made a comment about toys like the fins, paddles, po' boys, lava pants, all those kind of things. And how have you used those, and what's your experience been?
Yeah, good point. It's interesting. I guess one of the single biggest issues I had when I first started swimming is one which is particularly common with people coming from a running and cycling background. It is the thing I just mentioned, the famous sinking legs, the swimming uphill syndrome, coupled with the fact that I had a very, very weak kick. And if you put me with a kick float in the pool and I would kick, I would actually go backwards, and I had a very, very inefficient kick. And one of the coaches I worked with encouraged me to use fins, not to become dependent on them, but to use them to develop a strong kick. And fins was definitely my catalyst for working out my kick problems. And so I certainly do recommend fins being used selectively. Beyond that, I am a big fan of paddles. Again, used selectively. I've found paddles to be a very useful toy for developing the high elbow catch. There's a number of different kinds of paddles out there. Finis makes some good ones. There's one that's designed for the high elbow catch. There's another one that's designed to ensure efficient hand entry into the water. Different paddles for different purposes. I find they all have a particular use. But yeah, I'm a big fan of toys. As are most of the best swimmers I know. You normally see the whole little pile of toys piled up at the end of the pool when they're in there doing their drills, and I certainly agree with that.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, you mentioned the kicking going backwards, and that's a great point, because that's a lot of people, especially if people have come from a running background, which a lot of triathletes do. The ankles tend to get really inflexible, and you go backwards if you just kick in place. And I've seen that, and I've seen people get over that, and it can be done with fins. And then we also teach the vertical kicking, and it's just stretching out your ankles that tends to help quite a bit. So yeah, and then at this point, what are your workouts like? Like, are you doing a lot of drills, or are you just shifting more to intervals, or what is it? What's a typical workout?
Really, all of the above. So I guess the first thing I'd say is, and this sounds kind of so obvious, but it has to be stated, which is if you want to swim, you've got to swim. You have to hit the pool regularly. And that doesn't mean once, twice a week, unless you're a really strong swimmer to start off with. If you want to build up your swim fitness and your technique, you've really got to hit the water 3-4 times a week. So you've got to be that guy that is out of bed at 5 in the morning, hitting the pool there as the sun comes up. That's certainly been a very key part of my own progress. I'm down there knocking on the door when my local pool opens at 6:30 a.m. And I tend to get there 3 to 4 times a week, at least 30 minutes each session. Now, when you're down there, you've really got to make effective use of that time. And there's a couple of things that come out of this. Every swim workout, I have some kind of intention. And I tend to mix up my swim time between drill sessions, high intensity interval sessions, and long swims. One thing you cannot do is just jump in the pool and swim. Jump in, do 1,500, 2,000 meters, whatever it might be. That's fine once a week, maybe, for building up that endurance fitness. But for me, the more effective training is building in some drills and building in those kind of high intensity sprints. So I find the combination of those 3 different kinds of workout to be very, very effective. That's how I tend to work my weeks, and it seems to be working so far.
Great advice there. Yeah, and you mentioned also, we were talking about toys, and then there's one in particular that you've had a lot of success with, the Finis Tempo Trainer. Can you talk about why you think that's a great investment for swimmers?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I had one of those swim videos done a year or so ago, I did what with hindsight was a very brave thing. I posted the link to my video up on the Slow Twitch triathlon forum
Hmm.
and encouraged people to critique me.
Hmm.
And that took a strong stomach to read through the comments that came back. But more than one person pointed out to me that I had a very, very slow turnover. And sure enough, I started watching videos online and watching things like people at Kona and the Olympics and doing open water swims, and noticed they had a very, very high turnover. And so I thought, okay, this seems to be a good way to improve my overall times. So with the aid of a Finnish tempo trainer, and if you're not familiar with this particular toy, it's a little device. You stick it under your swim cap, and it's very simple. You set it to a particular stroke rate, and it beeps in your ear, and so you keep up with the beep, and you adhere to a certain stroke rate. And I think everybody has an optimal stroke rate, which is a combination between the best turnover together with the optimal glide. And over a period of a couple of months, I experimented with different stroke rates to find out what suited my style. And I started off, I think, at about down in the low 50 strokes per minute, and I started adding one stroke every couple of days. And by the way, just adding one stroke per minute to your swim, you will feel that. Even one stroke is something you will feel. And I gradually edged up until I got to, in my case, an optimal swim of 63 strokes per minute. And then something curious happened. When I went to 64 and 65, I found my swim time started increasing rather than decreasing. So it seemed that for me, 63 strokes per minute was my optimal stroke rate. And that's where I am right now. That might improve as I get fitter, but right now the tempo trainer was a fantastic tool for finding what was my optimal stroke rate. And I think everybody has a different optimal stroke rate. To an extent, it's a function of your wingspan, how tall you are, things like that. I'm 5'10", 5'11". For me and for my age and for my level of fitness, 63 strokes per minute seems to be optimal.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I love the tempo trainer, and we also do the swim golf, which is kind of like the low tech, low inexpensive or free way of doing something similar. So you can kind of get your efficiency, see how your efficiency is in the water. But yeah, tempo trainers are great. Now let's talk a little bit about wetsuits. You have some opinions there. Like what types of wetsuit or what type of wetsuit do you recommend that people go with?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think I'm on my third generation of wetsuit right now, and I guess the buying tip I would offer is buy the best wetsuit you can afford. The cheap wetsuits tend to be cheap for a reason, and it seems to come down to the quality of neoprene. So I always find that I won't mention any brands to embarrass particular vendors, but the first wetsuit I purchased, which cost me all of $175. I used to get massive shoulder fatigue with that wetsuit, and couldn't quite work out why. And it only really figured out what the issue was when I tried a much more expensive wetsuit from a different vendor, higher quality neoprene, and all of a sudden my shoulders just felt revitalized. And it seems to come down to the quality of the suit and the quality of the neoprene around the shoulder joints in particular is a big factor. So you may end up spending $700, $800 for a high-end wetsuit, but I do recommend if you can do that, you should do it. It will certainly help your shoulder fatigue and will probably improve your times as well.
Yeah, I think even within companies, there are different levels of quality of wetsuits. Like if you just want to get started, then they have kind of the entry level type of wetsuits. But those, like you said, that could be problematic down the road if you're going to do several races. And also, you also mentioned this kind of constriction, and that's what for me as a swimmer, swimming background, I never really liked wetsuits at all because of that constricting feeling. And so the more of kind of like that openness you can feel, the better it is. And I actually will mention a brand because we're pretty tied into them, and I hope you're also a fan. But we use Xterra quite a bit, Xterra wetsuits, and they're a company that has different levels depending on what you're trying to do, and they have sleeves and sleeveless, and I think their quality is pretty much up there with the top brands.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I experimented with sleeveless wetsuits as well, and yeah, sure enough, you get through the shoulder fatigue problem. But depending on which part of the country you're in, here in Northern California, those early season swims, it's 50, 51 degrees out there, and you really want to be doing it in a sleeveless wetsuit.
Yeah, it's because you lose a lot of your heat through your armpits. So if you have your armpits exposed, that's problematic. I remember I did the Alcatraz swim once, and it's like I think it's like 49 or 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the water, and then the air outside is cold. And I put on one of those sleeveless suits, thinking, oh, that'll save me. But I had hypothermia after the race, so it didn't do too much.
Yeah, one more tip I learned quite recently on that one, by the way, which is that if you do get shoulder fatigue during an open water swim, if you change your stroke to more of a kind of swinger style versus the high elbow recovery, that takes quite a lot of pressure off your shoulders as well. And again, something else I've noticed by watching the pros with their open water swims, the classic kind of technique you get taught in the pool is the high elbow through recovery. You don't see many pros doing that in open water swims, and I think one reason is the shoulder fatigue issue.
Yeah,
Just my 2 cents.
yeah, no, that's a good point, and that it really shows you that it's what you do under the water that really matters. It's the recovery. We teach the high elbow recovery just because it's easy. It's an easy thing to get started with. But once you've been swimming for a while, yeah, you can do whatever kind of recovery works. It's just as long as you're doing the proper pull once you put your arm in the water. So now you had something to say about flip turns. I wanted to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I guess in terms of economy of effort and focusing your training on the right things, that there's a couple of things that I have expressly not bothered with. So you go down the pool and you see the guys doing the flip turns, and it looks very, very cool. But of course, totally useless in an open water swim. My only objective through my swimming is to be better in the triathlon swim. So guess what? There are no walls to do flip turns off where you're out there in the ocean. So I try to do flip turns. I make an embarrassment of myself. I'd love to do them, at some point just to impress the girls, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to do that because it's not going to help my race performance. The other thing, which is, to be honest, I would love to conquer, but have never been able to do so, is I always breathe to the left every 2 strokes. And yeah, I'd love to do bilateral breathing. Breathe every other side every 3 strokes. I think it might iron out a few asymmetries in my stroke. Having said that, again, you watch the pros in their open water swims, and you see a lot of single-sided breathing. And again, my coach and mentor up here, Pete Kane, is typically first out of the water in his races. He only ever breathes to one side, so it hasn't held him back. So again, if you can do it, fantastic. But if you're a single-sided breather, I wouldn't stress too much about it. That's my personal view.
All right, so we're going to have a little controversy here. So I agree with you. But let's start with the bilateral breathing. So I definitely agree with you on that because the main thing about breathing is to get air. And if it's really a struggle to breathe to your weaker side, most people have a weaker side, then you're not helping yourself by trying to bilateral breathe. It's going to hurt you. And then also it takes a while to learn. So it's like of all the things, like you said, there's so many things to learn with swimming. That needs to be way down the line. And I do like it in terms of balancing, like you were saying, balancing out your stroke. And if you swim like an insane amount of laps and yards like I did as a kid, you will probably likely end up with some shoulder issues if you only breathe to one side. But if you're doing like a sport like triathlon where you're not just swimming all the time, then you're probably okay for at least for a while. I mean, it's not going to kill you to just breathe to one side. And then it does help a little bit with navigation when you're out in the open water. It helps to kind of see where you are and to be able to breathe to the other side. So I recommend learning it, but keeping it as a not a priority. And then the flip turns, I teach flip turns because you said that there's no walls in the open water, but if you're doing the open turns, it's almost like a little break when you're swimming. Like every time you come to the wall, you take a little break. And so the same thing applies to open water. There's no walls, so you can't take those little breaks. So I prefer to train in a 50-meter pool with flip turns because that simulates the open water a little bit better than doing just open turns in a shorter pool.
True enough. True enough.
So Steve, you're gonna have to learn flip turns if you want to stay a tri-swim coach member.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up with a couple things. So you have an idea of what's the one thing that people should learn, like the one thing that someone can do to get better at swimming.
I would focus on that high elbow catch, which we referenced before, and improving the your pull. Again, something which you can only really simulate, you can only really visualize by looking under the water with a video or something of that nature. I'll just share with you a recent investment I just made just a couple of weeks ago, and I know it's something that you're fond of as well. I just purchased one of those Vasa swim trainers.
Yep.
And part of this is you can actually see the power that you are developing with your pull. And it's become clear to me that I am embarrassingly weak. So my lats need some massive development. So my big project for this close season coming up is to use the Vasa and improve those lats and develop the pull. The Vasa is also pretty good for working on the technique of that high elbow catch, because you're watching the power meter. You can actually see what you're developing if you with a high elbow versus a dropped elbow, and it is massively more efficient with the high elbow. So that for me is the single biggest thing you can do to improve your swim performance is to develop a high elbow catch. And I know this is a theme that you've expanded on in many of your previous podcasts as well, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're totally aligned there. And I didn't used to teach that. It's funny, like that seems to be the big thing now. And I used to teach that you really need to focus on balance in the water and let the pull come later. But yeah, now it's really kind of they go hand in hand. I mean, the more you can focus, the more you can work on that high elbow, the better off you're going to be, like you're pointing out. And so I want to wrap it up, Steve. It's been really great having you on the podcast. I think your advice here is really spot on, and it's really helpful for especially beginner level triathletes that are just getting into this sport and just sort of like, I don't know what to do with the swim. And so I think this is a great story, and I love what you've been able to accomplish.
Thank you. Well, let me just share with just a couple of quick stories to show you where I am here at this point in time. So 2 weeks ago, I did the Alcatraz swim that you just referenced.
Oh, yeah.
Alcatraz Island, across to the mainland. If you told me 4 years ago, even 1 year ago, I'd be doing that swim, then I'd have told you were crazy. So and I did that with gas in the tank at the end. So I was very pleased with that. And secondly, just a couple of weeks ago, back in September, I actually scored my first ever podium in it was a sprint race. I've always been a strong cyclist and runner, but my swim always let me down. My swim is now good enough when coupled with my bike and run to get me on the podium. And so I was very pleased about that. And I always used to joke with my friends that my only objective for my swimming was to get to T1 and have a problem finding my bike. It was just way too often I'd get out the water and there'd be like 2 bikes left in transition and one was mine. I now have a problem finding my bike, and that's a nice problem to have.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that finish, by the way. That's really cool.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, Steve. I'm glad we got to connect on this podcast, and I'm so thankful that you reached out to me and that you've been able to share all your information on here. And good luck with everything you're doing, and I look forward to seeing how everything goes in the future.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to tryswimlessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim and laughing at the water now.